Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming to workshop 1 for you this afternoon. Art is Justice. My name is Kate Loughlin. I'm the dance teacher and choreographer here at Loomis, if you don't know me.
And hello, thank you so much for coming, and special thanks to the faculty and Ms. Dojo for being here. We appreciate you. I'm Mahsa Attaran, and I teach photography, videography, and 3D fabrication at the REC.
To start off, I just wanted to speak a little bit for myself as an artist, a dance maker, and as an educator, and what doing art as a way of justice, social justice, and activism means to me. I have my notes here because I'm more of a mover than a talker, but I didn't want to go off script too much. So, do you want to ask those questions first?
You want to?
Yeah, let's ask these questions first, and then I'll do my little spiel. So just to get the ball rolling, we don't want to just like talk at you. So this is going to be some like talky, and then some actually like doing and engaging with art is what this afternoon is going to look like. So first we wanted to hear from you all, and I hope feel free to just shout out answers, or you can chat with your neighbor and then share. If nobody talks, it's going to be painful. So just what is art? Like, can anybody give me examples of art? What is, like, have you done any art? Have you taken any art classes here? Anybody? Like, what have we done as artwork? Drawing, thank you. What else? Ceramics, awesome. Anything else? Music, totally. The kinds of arts?
I was feeling left out. Theater.
Theater, right? Dance, is a dancer. Yeah. Photography, absolutely. Sculpture. Even music, right? Music making, filmmaking. Even if you're a fashion person, how you choose to build your wardrobe, how you choose to express yourself through clothing, that can be even considered artistic, right? So architecture, 100%. So art really does exist all around us, and so sometimes you just need to like think about hooking into that in a concrete way. So what is art for? Like, why does art exist? What is its purpose? Self-expression, perfect. Yes. What else? Creativity, great. A real human impulse. Connection, yeah, great. All of these things. This is where we're sort of taking our brain today. If art is a tool, who gets to use it? Everyone? Sure. Are there barriers to being able to make art? Yes, yeah, we could absolutely see that happening. Cultural, economic, access barriers exist for making art, but art it exists as a thing that anyone can access inside if they choose to. This is just something to consider later on as we finish our conversation. Just hold that last question in your head. What is the difference between art and entertainment, and is there overlap in there? So for me, at its core, art is about expression and humanity, right? Two things that two people already mentioned, which I appreciate you being on my same page. Humans are, as far as we know, the only animals that make art expressly for the sake of making it and as a method of communication and self-expression and creating beauty. So it's a way of experiencing our world and processing it for ourselves. For me, when I make a dance about cultural issues or social justice issues, there are a couple of things that are going on for me as a creator, as an art maker, and as an educator. So first of all, I want to say that I recognize my privilege as a middle-class, middle-aged, cis-het white woman in an able body in America. This is an extreme place of privilege for me to exist. Even the fact that I was able to start dancing young growing up, and my mother was willing to help fund my education in dance, in higher education, to then allow me to come and do this work, I'm extremely privileged to do that. I'm really grateful for that opportunity. So I just want to recognize that first. There are reasonable questions around who gets to make work about X, Y, or Z things, right? These are fair, reasonable, and important questions to ask. And as a creator, it's important to hold those questions in your head and examine that while you are in the process of making your work or deciding to make that kind of work. For me, as someone who exists in a place of privilege, I feel like if I choose to not use my voice in support of causes that I think are important, things that I think are important to humanity, or in support of people who are groups who are marginalized or others, that feels irresponsible to me. So because I have the privilege of being who I am and doing the work that I do, I want to use my voice in allyship and support of things that I feel are important for our community and for our world. So as an example, like I never experienced war, but I stand against war because of my humanity. I did not live through the civil rights movement, but my mother and grandmother did, and they marched in Baltimore and Washington, where we grew up. So I was raised with feeling like that is important and that social justice work is important, even before we had words for that when I was in school in the 80s and 90s. But so I celebrate Dr. King and I celebrate the civil rights movement because I believe in equality and justice and humanity and fairness. I was really excited to hear Dr. Love mention how Coretta Scott King also fought for LGBTQIA plus rights in the 60s. When even that othering was still very prominent. And she was not a gay person, but she felt that that was really important to add her voice to that. So I kind of felt that kind of like allyship, right, when that was mentioned. So I thought that was really cool. I think intention in making art, actually in anything you do, is super important. So when a choreographer takes on an issue, a cultural or social issue through dance, there's always a lot of research that is done. There's a lot of unseen work that is part of the process of creating that you don't really see in the final product. So there's a lot of research, thinking, self-reflection, and discovery that happens before you even start moving, or before you even start putting a paintbrush to a canvas. So we want to try to make our work responsibly, ethically, and well-informed. Now that's not to say everyone's going to like your artwork when you make it, and that's fine. That's actually good. Right? We shouldn't all like the same things. As viewers, we all get to view a piece of artwork through our own lens and analyze it and feel it accordingly. The choreographer may do an imperfect job of expressing what they're trying to express, and that's okay too. As Dr. Love said on Tuesday, imperfection is part of our humanity. As an artist, for me also, making art can be a coping mechanism for me as an individual. I'm not trying to always just make a huge statement. It's how we deal with what's going on in our world, interpersonally, in our community, in the world at large. It allows us to engage with what's going on, both intellectually and emotionally, as art. And then as an art maker and an educator in this space, I hope that dances that I've made, particularly like the MLK dances I've made over these, I've been teaching dance for 27 years, and I've made probably 35 MLK dances over that time. So always trying to come at it in a different way, finding different ways to connect to the material, either expanding or narrowing the scope of that. But I hope that the dances I've made, like ones for MLK, refugee crisis, or bullying, other issues, I hope that those dances can be an inroad for curiosity for the viewers. And for my dancers, right, for my fellow dancers. And maybe you're hearing about something for the first time, or it's making you question something. So like last year, the guiding inspiration for our dance for MLK was the Little Rock Nine, who were students who, after Brown and Board of Education and schools were officially desegregated, 9 black students were sent to an all-white school in Little Rock, Arkansas. And there was a lot of conflict around that. They had to actually be protected by the 101st Airborne Division of the United States military when the governor used the state military to try and block their entrance to the school. So the dancers and I did a lot of research about that. We watched, we got primary sources, we watched a video, documentary, we read interviews, we looked at a lot of contemporary media of the time, film and video of that actual event happening, which was really powerful. So we had a lot of reflection about that. And then distilled that down into a 3.5-minute dance to Blackbird by Beyonce, which is actually about the Little Rock Nine. But if you just watch that 3.5 dance from the outside, like you might not get all of that information right away, and that's okay, right? But I wanted it to be sort of open up the idea of like, oh, I've never heard of the Little Rock Nine, or I've heard of them, but I don't really know what that's about. I could do a quick Google, right? So I've never been bullied, thinking that, but do people actually have to go through their day like that and feel that every day? Maybe I should be a little more compassionate about that, yeah? It's just a way of like thinking a little outside yourself, maybe opening a road to curiosity. And then lastly, this is not to say that all the work I make is this like heavy material. I make a lot of pieces that are just expressions of joy or love or just an embodiment of a piece of music that is really powerful or exciting or moving to me. Sometimes we make dances about visual artwork. Sometimes we make dances about the outdoors. Sometimes we just want to explore how we move our bodies through space. So making something beautiful or joyful when there is so much dark and scary stuff going on in our world is in itself an act of rebellion, an act of resistance, right? Finding joy in moments when everything else around you feels like it's telling you to sit down, step back, be quiet, and don't engage. Choosing to engage with your world or another human being and making something beautiful is powerful and important. So I hope at the end of today, all of you will be inspired to maybe take an art class or just go write a poem, go make a piece of music, go take a drawing, go dance in your dorm room with your friends. I will stop talking now. Thank you.
I'm a visual arts teacher, so I have a lot of visuals for you. So I am a visual artist, I am a fashion designer, and I'm an educator. And my work really, I just want to tell you a little bit about my work, but before talking about it, I'm going to tell you a story soon. So my work really comes from my lived experience. Literally, every genre in art that I started comes from a life experience of mine. And I'm interested in spaces that carry history that I can relate to and I can tell my story through. Especially the weight of placed on women inside them. Like, for example, the domestic spaces. As a woman coming from the Middle East, I have a lot of experiences that I can make art from. But before that, I want to tell you a story. Before that, my country has been occupied by a brutal regime since 1979. And we are deprived from so many of our basic rights. For example, the right to speak freely. For example, a person, which is so ridiculous and funny, a person in Iran is being arrested because he puts a comment, just a dot, at the Supreme Leader's Twitter post. And he's been in prison for 2 years now, just for putting a dot, not saying anything. We cannot choose what to wear. We cannot choose how to express ourselves. The schools are separated for boys and girls. So many of these things. And I'm not saying these things for you to feel pity, but just so you are aware of having some context of what I am talking about. And of course, we have compulsory hijab, which means that you should cover your body from head to toe. From 1979. And there was some protests here and there, but of course, always being just responded very brutally by the regime, so everyone should be silent because they literally just kill you, so you can't say anything. How many people should be killed for people to just say, okay, I just back up. And people, you just get used to that. If you are in prison for 2 years, 3 years, you just get used to that. And that was the situation for us for a long time. Until 2017. Just a normal day, everyone wearing their hijabs going out. This girl, Vidam Wahed, which no one knew her name until then, just a normal girl like me, like so many other Iranian girls, she decided to do something. Not saying anything, quietly, silently, going into a busy street, a busy intersection, going on top of this utility box, taking her headscarf off, just holding it. Not saying anything, not chanting, not shouting, no violence, no slogan, nothing. For a while, people were looking at her what is happening? And then, of course, police came, what are you doing? Arrested her, of course. But then something changed. People were this is something that we should talk about. Of course, yes, we are used to that. It's not really annoying me to wear that every day, but I don't want it. So it became a pattern. Bravery is contagious. It became a campaign. People went on the street, on the utility boxes, on these benches, holding their scarves, not saying anything. Of course, all of them got brutally arrested. And what was the response of the regime to that? What do you think they did? Do you have any ideas? After like the arrest and all of those, just like to prevent this. No thoughts? You can't even imagine. They made these triangles on top of the utility boxes for people to not stand on them. Like, isn't it ridiculous? Is it really how you solve a problem? Like, half of the society are trying to tell you that we want to have a choice to whether wear this or not. And this is just one example. Like, I cannot leave the country without my husband's permission. I cannot get a passport. I cannot have a surgery, decide to do something with my body. Thousands of those. I don't have a right for my child. Like, I don't own my child. Just my husband would do that. This is all of these. And this is not just about this hijab. It's about a regime that is trying to like silence people in the most ridiculous way. And then in 2022, and also the regime has like created this morality police. Do you know what morality police is? I'm like, you're so lucky to not know that. I wish I didn't know that. So they created this morality police like since then, or even earlier, I don't remember when. It's been decades now. To drive on the streets with their vans, and they kidnap girls. Not because they are not wearing their hijab. You know, they were wearing something, of course, to not just be in trouble. So many of them. Just because their hair was out of their scarf. So in 2022, a girl got arrested by the morality police brutally that she got killed by them. They like hit her head so hard in the van, or we don't know what happened to her, that she just died. Because her hair was like a little bit out of her scarf. And then people were like, this is not acceptable. The uprising happened, and the name of that is Women Life Freedom Uprising, basically. And since then, something changed. They killed thousands of people on the street, in the prisons, executed so many people. Because they say that if you are against us, they consider themselves God. So you are an enemy to God, and they execute you. So anyone protested was executed, basically. Thousands of people get killed, but since then, people don't care. No one is wearing their hijab. They are still getting arrested, but they don't care. Like, these girls are so brave. They know that what happened to these people. They saw all of these executions, but they are so brave. They are like, this is not right, I'm going to fight against that. And I'm not like really going to describe like the violence is not the right space for that. And this is much more than what I told you. But, and also my country right now is in the middle of an ongoing revolution. Like, this is really happening right now. Just like in the past 2 days, 20,000 people got killed. Like, they're like doing like a genocide, literally. Like, very bad. It's funny, I have so many of these notes, I'm not reading them at all. Because I just have a lot to tell you. But and these are not like really like what I'm telling you, like abstract ideas, you know, or again, like seeking for pity and saying that, oh yeah, I'm sorry you are from the Middle East. That is not what I'm talking about. That's what I want to tell you is that justice matters, art matters, your voice matters. I chose to use my art for raising awareness. My art is coming from my lived experience. And what is interesting for me is that when my undergrad degree is in anesthesiology. So I didn't even start my professional life as an artist. Even me becoming an artist was like a lived experience. We went on a ski tour with my classmates, and they said that there is a photo competition. And I didn't even have a smartphone. I just had this little tiny compact camera that I bought when I was at your age with my pocket money, and I started taking photos. I never knew that I'm becoming an artist in my life after. Or even before that, I became like a fashion designer. I started that before. That was in response to an oppression. Because the entrance for our university was separate. It was a separate entrance for girls and for boys, which is ridiculous. We went from different entrances and we would sit next to each other in class. Because they had a police, a security person, kind of looking at us. Oh no, your shirt is so short. You should go back home, change it. You have nail polish. You have to remove it. I don't let you go in. This is so disrespectful. That's why, this revolution that we are doing in Iran right now, it's not about an ideology. We want to become this religion country. We want to do that. We just want basic rights. We want a life with dignity. We want our freedom, like the life that you are all having here. And that is why I think that we're going to succeed. Because no one can stop people who are fighting for dignity. So at that time when I went to university, I personally, this compulsory hijab wasn't really hurting me because personally I grew up in a Muslim family. It was never forced on me. I chose to wear that. And I was wearing the most covering one, for bonus points basically. It's called chador. It's like a black veil that covers from your head to toe. Again, I believed in that. But I always loved colors, like you see I'm wearing pink. I always loved colors. I always loved some nice designs and fashion design. My mom is a fashion designer. We always designing things together. So I was wearing this, under this black veil, I was wearing this colorful scarf. And this security person at the entrance, she would give me trouble every day. I'm not letting you in. You are having colors. And I was I have my hijab. What is wrong? What is the problem? I was kind of debating to see what. There was no rule. She just didn't like it. And of course, she was in the position of power and I was not. That actually taught me a very strong lesson. You should speak up for your rights or for someone else's rights when you see that something is wrong. For example, if I ask you, leave now. I don't want you to be here. I don't want you to be here. If you leave, you're not fighting for yourself. If you leave and no one else say anything, why are you doing that? That is not right. That is why I make art, to tell people that you need to speak up. You shouldn't be silent until it happens to you and say that, oh yeah, it sucks. I have to do something. It's happening to me now. Don't wait until it happens to you. Speak up. So I couldn't do anything at that time. So many times I was just arguing with her. And I was fine. I was wearing a black scarf under my black veil, but it was suffocating me. So I started designing these accessories, colorful accessories to bring it, kind of bring some colors to my life. And it evolved and evolved, and I became a fashion designer. I won the Vogue Talent competition for 2 consecutive years in 2019 and 2020. So I'm glad that she was oppressing me. And now we're kicking them out of the country so they cannot oppress any more people. But even with all of those, I was a commercial photographer in Iran, and I didn't really know all of this that I'm fighting, I didn't understand all of these things that I'm doing are kind of resistance. Until I left Iran, I was in these fine art programs, and I had a hard time figuring out what is fine arts, what am I doing, even though I was doing it for years. I just didn't notice what I'm doing really. And this uprising, when it happened, I was if I was back home, I should have been so brave to go on the streets and risking my life basically, not knowing if I come home at night or not. So many people didn't come to their homes right now. I was like, now that I'm here, I am safe. Or I couldn't even make work if I was in Iran. If I wanted to do anything related to these things, like for justice, I would immediately get arrested. Immediately. Even the reporter, like the journalist who reported this, like on the newspaper, she was arrested, like she was in prison for 2-3 years. She just got released recently. So I was like, if I was back home, I couldn't do any of this. Now, this is my responsibility to raise my voice for those people. To use this freedom to raise awareness about what is happening and leave the audience to come to a decision that, like, whether it makes sense for them or not, what do they want to do, how do they want to comprehend it. I do my part as a human, not even as an artist. And I think all of us as humans have this responsibility to speak up. Of course, we cannot cover like the whole world, like oppression, whatever is happening in all countries, but as much as we can. All I'm asking you is to care. And as an audience for art, try not to judge, but try to observe, try to ask questions. My goal for making art is that just make you curious, and if one person leaves my show with like questions in mind, I have reached my goal. And you are not required to agree with the work or even like it. You can completely dislike it, and it's okay. What matters is that you notice, you remain curious, and understand that this work emerges from a moment where silence was no longer possible. That's what I already talked about. And now we want you to walk to the Mercy Gallery, choose one work, and engage with it deeply for like 10 minutes, and then we can come back for a debrief and if you have any questions. And have these questions, like consider these questions and maybe just like even one of them, and try to see if you can find an answer for that, or like even if you have any other questions. Just try to think about it. Thank you so much.
Have any of you been through her show in the gallery yet? Okay, great. This is a great opportunity to go do that. So please take a few minutes to go through the gallery. We will gather back here for a quick debrief. So hold 1 or 2 or 3 of these questions in your head and come back and share your observations or thoughts with us when you come back. So yes, thank you everybody for engaging with the work, and I appreciate even seeing conversations between each other while you're looking at Mahsa's amazing artwork. So some of the questions that we had: what is this work asking me to notice? How does this work make me feel? What responsibility do I have as a viewer? Some other things you can reflect on. What questions are you left with after experiencing these works? And you can ask the artist herself is here. We don't often, when you experience work, you don't always get to have a direct line of communication to the artist or the choreographer or the singer or the composer. So it's great that you have that moment here. What is the responsibility of the viewer when encountering a work of art? What does it mean to bear witness? What is the difference between being critical and being a critical thinker? So being a critic of a piece of artwork, or being a critical thinker about what you're seeing? And how can art be a form of nonviolent resistance? So any of those things, or any other thoughts that you may have had, can someone share a thought or an observation or a question that they had? Don't make me call on you. Yeah, Mr. Lahaz.
I'm thinking about the question you started with about what is art do, and how often art is about engaging with a certain tradition, cultural tradition, and it seems like one of the big traditions that you're engaging with in the gallery is that of family portraiture. And it seems like the choice of that tradition in particular seems really intentional when you're thinking about where does politics exist, what's the political role of the home. And so I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about the manipulation of some of the portraiture, the choice of that genre. It just was, I thought, one of the most compelling aspects of the gallery work.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That was actually a really great question. So when I think about like fine art and like making my art about like all of these experiences that I talked about, I always end up like with domestic spaces. Because first of all, like I'm coming from like a very tight-knit family. Like I'm 24/7 video calling with my parents, and over the past 2 weeks, like the regime was like shutting up like completely the internet, phone call, text, anything. So we had like no communication with each other, and it was the longest time I couldn't like really talk to them. So it's coming from that first of all, because I always find myself like in love with home, with domestic spaces, and also as an Iranian woman who has experienced all of these like oppressions, I find it maybe the first place that the oppression comes sometimes for some people. I didn't experience domestic violence and domestic kind of oppression personally, but that's the case for so many families in countries being led by these like extreme Islamist like regimes, like these kind of brutal regimes. And I blame those regimes, like the government, for these domestic violences. Because they give them like the freedom basically to that. Yeah, you can just do that under Sharia laws, you can do this, you can do that, so you're not getting in trouble, do that. So first of all, like, yeah, it's coming from like my love for my family. Of course, I want to just hold it like close to my heart. You know, it's easier for me to work with. And also one of the students just asked me a question about they saw like a pattern of using Persian rugs in my work. Like, is that intentional? Yes. I want you to feel like you have entered some sort of home, like a feeling of home, or reminding you of like your home when you see my work. That's why I use a lot of domestic space like elements, for example, kitchen elements, because that is so feminine. You know, you always talk about like, oh yeah, my mom's cooking, or like my mom in the kitchen. But like, I don't like so often hear that, oh yeah, my dad's cooking. Or like my grandma's cooking is great. So that's also like a story. I mean, that is so sweet, of course. Like the whole cookbook that you saw, there's all about like my love story for my mom and like what she did for me. But of course, for that, I always say for my parents. Even though my mom's role was like very bold in that, but I always say for my parents because it's not just my mom. Like it's both of them. I always like insist on that aspect of that. But talking about the domestic violence, the domestic space, and women versus domestic spaces, and women in domestic spaces, and kind of criticizing that because this regime is always kind of forcing and then encouraging. You know, it's like I force all of you to stay here, and then I give you lectures about how good is here. This is amazing. Like, it doesn't really matter. You're forced to stay here. You know, that's what this regime is doing with all of these oppressions. This is for your own good. Just stay here, and I give you lectures about how good it is. So it's about criticizing that. That's why I'm having like a lot of faces of women on those surfaces. Because I am still there, you know, even if you are trying to hide me, trying to silence me, I am still there. I can see what my rights are. I can see what you are doing. And I'm not fighting against that. And thank you so much for asking. I hope it answers your question. Thank you.
Somebody else have another observation or question or thought they're willing to share? I saw you talking to each other. I knew you had to be talking at least a little bit while we asked you. Did anybody have a favorite, a piece that they were initially drawn to or that they came back to or that they were most interested in looking at again? For me, it was the reflective piece when you first walk in. I kept coming back to that. Yeah. Sarah?
There were a lot of pieces that I was sort of like, I felt like I could interpret the message of, but I was really curious about the knives hanging from the ceiling and what that meant.
Thank you for mentioning that. That actually is a lot about, do you remember like this slide that I showed you? That kind of getting used to that oppression and like getting so used to that we didn't really do any big revolution until like 2017 that this girl did from 1979 to 2017. Here and there, not a lot of kind of uprisings. Getting used to that. And the name of that piece is Under the Shadows We Exist. And it has like a lot of knives with like pattern, with like these nice Persian patterns, because Iran is like the place for like Persian rugs. We have a lot of rugs, a lot of amazing Persian art. So I ornated all of them with these nice patterns. And they are hanging from different levels. So when it's darker, like if you come in the evening, you can see some of them are having sharper shadows. You can exactly see the knife. And so some of them, like it's more blurry, but bigger. And the meaning for that is that it doesn't matter how beautifully you decorate a knife. It can still kill you. It doesn't matter how like floral it is. That's actually what they do with this mandatory hijab. They try to create these nice, like ornated fabrics, like silk, very expensive floral, to cover you from head to toe. And say, oh yeah, you look much more beautiful with that. I don't need you to tell me how beautiful I look with that. I want to decide to see if I look beautiful with my hair like this or with that hijab. I want to have that choice. And under the shadows we exist. Sometimes we just get so used to that it doesn't really feel like oppression. But that shadow is still overcasting us. The knife is blurrier, like you can't really see that, but it's still there. It's still sharp. It still can kill you. And sometimes it's like, no, it's like right now. It's like very sharp. We are like with open eyes. We can see that. We are feeling that stabbing us. And that was the meaning of that piece. Thank you so much for asking that.
We get one more comment, observation, share to round out our evening. Yes.
This is more curiosity. The piece of the wonderful portrait of all the women that's quite large. Only very few of them are wearing a head covering of any kind. And could you comment on when that sort of is that rare to be photographed that way, or in what circumstances would it be fine to have the photograph done that way as opposed to?
So thank you for asking that. Those photos are all like archival photos from before this Islamic revolution happened. And it doesn't mean that nowadays, like after this revolution, everyone is wearing that hijab in their, like for example, personal gatherings, family gatherings. No, most of the people don't believe in that and they don't do it. You know what? This regime and like all of these oppressor regimes teach their people how to become good liars. You learn, after years of living under those oppressor regimes, you learn how to hide your identity, how to hide your real self. And that's like what happens. Like, we go out there, like, fix your scarf, bring it. I'm like, okay, yes, I did that. I'm fine now. Or, for example, when I was in my undergrads, there were like, I was in Shiraz University, which is like a major city in Iran. I'm from that city. And there were so many other students coming from other cities trying to like transfer to this like better university. Do you know what they did to kind of qualify for that? None of them like believed in hijab. Like if you could see their faces, they were like all having like these, like you could tell that they are not like believing in hijab. They were coming with this like chador, with this like black veil to qualify for that because they like that, and they're like, oh yeah, you are a better student with that. They don't care about like how good you are in your academics, how good you are like in your studies. Being a good liar. And the head of the school was like in the 7th floor, and someone told me in the elevator that the higher you go on this building, the more covering you should be.
Can I just follow up with that? You mentioned the 79 and it changed, those were archival from 379. Would there have been the overthrow of the Shah, that happened then, would there have been a major split or difference in opinion that was along gender lines between those who felt the Shah needed to be toppled and those who didn't feel the Shah needed
So that was not really like, we don't really call it like a revolution. That was mostly kind of an ideological like coup d'etat, like led by some of these like extreme Islamists from like, it was even led by like some of these like groups, extremists like from outside of Iran, and like kind of supported by them. Of course, people were like more religious by then, and they were like, oh yeah, our religion is like at danger, so we should do that. But even though it was like a very kind of Western-like country previously, as you can see in those photos, that's actually a very good example. That's one of the reasons I choose like archival old photos, because not anyone like really wearing those like black veils anymore. But like to just see the diversity, like how beautiful those people are. Without hijab, with hijab, they were all living in peace all together.
But would you say the support was more a male thing for the revolution and not as well supported by the women, or is it hard to
It was mostly men. Like if you can see the photos, like it's like mostly men. And after the revolution, I mean, they also fooled us, like fooled so many. I mean, I was not there, like fooled women. And they said that, oh yeah, we are like the leader Khomeini said that, no, we are not gonna force people to wear the hijab. But like the day after that the revolution was done, we are not letting you go out naked. Like who wants to go out naked? Like what is wrong with you? And then women were like rolling on the streets, and unfortunately it was not supported by men at that time, because they were like, oh yeah, death to the person without hijab, because they were like extreme Islamists like led this revolution. And they didn't really think that this is not right. This is gonna take more and more rights from you. And again, they stayed silent until it happened to them. Something happened to them. You know, this economy is like failing. Everything is failing. And now they're like, oh yeah, we go on the streets for that. And of course, now all of the people in Iran are like educated. They all know that we all live that. So we all know that we have to all work together to do that. So men right now in Iran are not like men 47 years ago when this revolution happened. And they are all like, we're all working together on that. And it's not really like the case that like men are doing it for themselves, like not caring about women, because they saw what happened. Thank you so much.